Thank you so much to my mentor. Also, I wanted to just shout out that I wouldn't be here without his encouragement. So thank you so much for that, Professor Combs. So really great that the material you just spoke of, Mike, was you said that the integral is coming, but we must take part, and that your interest is art, because I feel like I'm sort of simplifying it in this talk, and maybe this is a lot of review, but hopefully there will be something interesting for everyone. So yesterday, our Shida said that the Gebser said that we have to integrate all of the structures, the archaic, the magic, the mythic, and the mental, for the integral consciousness to come about. I'm not getting my, there we go, okay. George Furstein says that the structures should not be considered discrete experiences, but fluid experiences which embrace the aspects of each structure without disturbing the diaphanous nature of it. My thesis and my questions that I'm asking in this talk is first, two questions. First, where might we search for something that could lead to discovering the nature of the structures? What could we find that would be the felt or phenomenological sense of the structures? And the second question is how, or by what means, these ancient memories of Gebser's prehistorical and historical consciousness structures be retrieved and brought about into awareness, which I think is kind of what you were saying, that you're going to do probably in more depth. So this will be an intro for you. So I start to answer the first question by looking at the collective, Carl Jung's concept of primordial memory stored within the collective unconscious, specifically archetypes, instincts. And then I add Rupert Sheldrake's view about morphic resonance to just put a different framework on the whole topic. So in searching for resources, I'm having a hard time turning pages. Here we go. In searching for resources to shed light on the ancient consciousness structures, I looked to Jung's concept of the unconscious. Jung's studies and work led him to conclude that the unconscious is the real source of all of our human consciousness. This was a quote by Robert Johnson. In this talk, I'm particularly interested in the collective unconscious as opposed to the personal unconscious. And I should note that I'm assuming a non-materialist point of view here, that mind does not equate to the brain. And I'm taking what I believe is a panpsychist view on consciousness, that consciousness is everywhere. So my hypothesis is that these primordial memories, thoughts, and patterns are stored within the collective unconscious, and they may provide snippets of what Gebser's cultural consciousness structures seek to reveal. I also think that Jung's techniques, along with a few others, may provide some answers for this. So if so, these ancient primordial memories can provide an access bridge and an anchor for modern times. In his work, Jung wrote extensively. Jung wrote extensively about the collective unconscious, having tapped into it in his own mystical experiences and in his clinical work. Jung said that memories are stored in our unconscious minds, both in the personal and the collective unconscious, holding that these memories are merely awaiting our retrieval. He said that long forgotten ancestral memories are a form of the collective unconscious. The contents of the collective unconscious was never in a person's conscious experience. Rather, it comes to us from our human inheritance. It is a deeper layer than the personal unconscious, and it is universal. It has contents and modes of behavior that are more or less the same everywhere and in all individuals. Professor Combs says that each of us carries within his own being the whole history of biological life on the planet. I love that quote. Though Gebser himself didn't seem to be fond of this term, he did use it, but I found in another place in Ever-Present Origin that it almost seemed like it was a little bit begrudging, but he did use it to describe Jung's primordial memories. Jung believed that ancient memories from the collective unconscious belong to a group of individuals, a whole nation, or the whole of mankind. Evidence in the form of memories of prehistorical societies is important because past knowledge and memories are stored in the collective, a concept that I am likening to our modern day cloud, and I believe that our Ziemke yesterday said the same thing. These pieces of information are all around us, but we can't see them. I should note that the primordial memories don't arrive in a linguistic form. They come to us in the form of pictures, symbols, instincts, coincidences, metaphors, and myths. So now I want to talk about archetypes. Archetypes are a concept introduced by Jung and before him, St. Augustine. They are a correlate to the collective unconscious, which holds metaphorical content. The German author Jacobi refers to this as power centers and power fields of the unconscious. Robert Johnson says that the archetypes are energy systems that correspond to timeless and primordial realities. Roderick Mayne says that the unconscious mind can store primordial memories not acquired during one's lifetime as innate forms and instincts, archetypes handed down and stored generationally in the unconscious mind. Roderick Mayne has a lot of good material on this. He says that archetypes are important to consider when looking at content within the collective unconscious for their primordial symbolism. They are well-defined forms or templates in the psyche, and they share myths and patterns across humanity. Robert Johnson, again, says archetypes are often presented and I'm not sure if he's speaking about clinical work here or not, but it sort of sounds like it. Archetypes are often presented in the unconscious in images that are divine, royal, magical, and mythical. So I want to talk about morphic fields now, morphic fields or morphic resonance. Jung argues that his work and discoveries about the collective unconscious were neither speculative nor philosophical, but were empirical in nature. But because I have a background in mathematics and I'm always looking for something that has some science attached to it, and I was introduced by Professor Combs to Rupert Sheldrake, and his empirical work was immediately interesting to me, and I saw this connection with Jung's work in the collective unconscious. So I wanted to just talk about it here. Yeah, so I also, his work is empirical. He does scientific statistical studies, I would say, on this. It's really interesting. The notion of an access bridge across time, connecting our minds to ancient memories and thought patterns, can be explained by both Jung's collective unconscious and Rupert Sheldrake's, I think. Morphic resonance, it's a scientific explanation, which Sheldrake suggests that there's an intrinsic memory field in nature. He calls it the morphic field. Sheldrake's extensive research and empirical evidence proves that ancient memories are preserved across time in the form of habits and instincts, a concept that runs parallel to Jung's archetypes. Sheldrake uses, some of you might have seen his work, he uses flocks of birds and their flying patterns and directions, as well as schools of fish and other things too, but these were great illustrations to me. They illustrate various collective biological patterns and ancient memories, or what he terms habits, ancestral habits. These habits are handed down generationally and operate as an internal GPS, operating both personally and collectively. Now, Sheldrake's work has been, he's a biologist, and so he has been working, with dogs and birds and fish and that sort of thing. But it seems to me that his work has been generalized to humans by the philosopher Ervin Laszlo. And once again, shout out to Professor Combs for introducing me again to his friend, Ervin Laszlo. So Ervin Laszlo calls the ancient collective memories Akashic records rather than morphic fields, which adds a spiritual dimension to this. And so what he says is that everything in history, Laszlo says that everything in history that has ever occurred is universally encoded as part of a permanent cosmic record. In some, these thought patterns or habits are actually fields of memory, cultural inheritance, which Jung calls archetypes or instincts that have been stored through time and which now go into the collective pool toward future collective cultural memories. So I want to shift here to my second question about uncovering ancient memories. And I cannot cover, just a reminder that my second question is how or by what means these ancient memories, fields, or records of Gebser's prehistorical and historical consciousness structures might be retrieved and brought into modern awareness. So I'm not able to cover all the ways, and I am sure I don't know all of the ways, but I will, in this brief talk, cover imagination, intuition, and artistic endeavors. There are many other ways in which we might uncover ancient memories. Among them are connection to nature, interpreting dreams, spiritual connections, mystical experiences, meditative states, and psychedelic therapy experiences. I probably do have some references if anyone is interested in those, but I won't be talking about those today. So starting with the imagination, Jung stresses that the significance is not just imagination, but he calls it active imagination specifically. He uses active imagination to decipher messages from the unconscious mind. A quote from the Red Book, he says, "The wealth of the soul exists in images. He who possesses the image of the world possesses half the world, even if humanity is poor and owns nothing." Gebser offers that engaging with the imagination can invoke images from the mythic structure. Memories from the collective unconscious arrive in the conscious mind as forms, images, instincts, and symbols. Using the imagination to connect with the depths of the soul allows one to uncover and embrace images outside the normal linguistic ability or knowledge, though this content may require a search for meaning. Gregory Shaw says that He describes the imagination as a different way of seeing altogether, a kind of psychic activity, a way of identifying information normally hidden from the senses. Henry Corbin says that the imagination is a place where the soul enters the visionary paradoxes of divine nature, clothed in pictorial images. Now, that tells us about the imagination, but it doesn't say anything about how we might encourage the imagination, about how we might retrieve these symbols and myths. Well, Jung says the goal is to connect the conscious mind with the unconscious mind. He held that this is facilitated through what he calls the transcendent function. This is a pivotal link between the conscious mind and the unconscious mind. And we yesterday talked about individuation, which is a little bit different subject, but it was quite interesting. Jung says that to enable the use of this transcendent function and reach the material of the unconscious, one can visualize or use free association. He uses specifically those words, which were Freud's term for characterizing one's mood. Rudolf Steiner's instructs us that we can make peace with the inner life and reach the imagination in this way. He says, draw pictures in one's thoughts and hold the vision in the mind, preferably with an image that carries a feeling of intensity. I thought this was an interesting thing to think about, since Gebser stresses intensity over expansion. So next I want to talk about intuition. Intuition functions much like an inner GPS, an inner guidance system, or a method of instantaneous perception. Sean Kelly says that intuition is the most immediate form of knowing, characterized as perception via the unconscious. Through this faculty, archetypal symbols arise, representing previously unknown facts, which have been stored in the unconscious. Symbolic insights from the unconscious may rise to the conscious mind, which translates the pattern configurations into gut instincts, gut feelings, or flashes of insight. This was in his book, Individuation and the Absolute. Professor Combs says that intuition grasps truth directly and in leaps and bounds without the grueling or disciplined step-by-step progression of ideas usually required to reach comprehension. James Hillman says that intuition is a rapid and complete comprehension of direct and unmediated knowledge that occurs without cognitive reflection. It comes as an all of a sudden, all at once comprehension of meaning. So how might we enable the intuitive faculty? Jung says, be watchful for meaningful coincidences in symbols and signs, chance happenings, and of an improbable nature. Rudolf Steiner says, we must develop a living feeling for this silent thinking activity. We must learn to love what streams toward us from the spirit. And I believe that he would have said, whether it's positive or negative. Professor Combs and co-writer Mark Holland advise that we should expect the unexpected every minute of every day, and encourages that we allow permeable borders to the conscious mind. So we need to be on our toes. The last thing I want to talk about is the arts. Jung says that artists are those engaging in artistic endeavors, have a permeability between the conscious mind and the unconscious mind. I do have some experience in the arts as well as the sciences, and my personal experience, the intuition and symbols and ideas come in symbolic form and imagery. They might be at the tip of a paintbrush or through the memory of a musical piece. That said, I don't think, and I believe that the other authors, also don't think that it's necessary to create or perform art to have these symbolic form show up. I believe that you might just experience these things. Participating with art, that is, listening to music and looking at paintings, etc., is enough. Jung says that artists and those engaging in artistic endeavors have a permeability between the conscious mind and the unconscious mind. Robert McDermott said that art is a rich method of discovery, saying that we live into the feelings that arise when entering the world of art. As an example of invoking ancient memories, Herzog and a number of other archaeologists, including those researching in the Chauvet caves in southern France, claim that cave art makes them feel like they are connecting with the memories of the Paleolithic artists. Very powerful, I thought. These artists that drew cave drawings thousands of years ago, I think one of them that was in a particular documentary was about 30,000 years. It was really quite amazing. This proves that you do not have to participate in the creation of the art to partake in its trance-like qualities. It also proves that there is no time boundary to art as a receptacle of or for memories. Goethe says that the artist sees inside the idea, in a sense, becoming a holistic part of it. And Van James says that in primal consciousness, value-free phenomena are rare. Every sign, every picture, every gesture was filled in primal consciousness with spiritual power. Art was vital and living experience of pulsing universal energy brought into form and substance. James seems to be saying that the arts are forms of language which more deeply and intensely touch the soul, creating a source of timeless universal method for understanding. So Rudolf Steiner says, the artist is a precursor. The truly significant work of art is the one that prepares us for the future, which is what Shakespeare is saying too. Goethe says that art manifests the hidden laws of nature through the beauty, imagination, and the unique brilliance of the soul creating these things, which again picks up on Mike's talk, which was really super interesting. I hope I get to read that paper when it comes out. So how do we harvest memories and knowledge using the arts? Well, Gebser offers that playing or listening to music is a possible conduit to unlocking the magic structure, and suggests that painting can unlock the mythic structure. I'm going to probably massacre her name, Shudoro, who wrote Jung on Active Imagination, says that the arts were a significant part of Jung's clinical practice. Jung suggests that through the arts, the transcendent function can facilitate a connection between the conscious and the unconscious mind. He recommends free writing, drawing, painting, dancing images, and using musical modes of discovery. And he had a lot of examples in his many books. He always had something that linked with the arts. So in sum, Jung and Sheldrake's work proves that ancient primordial memories are woven into the very fabric of our being, running invisibly like a computer operating system in the background of our minds. The research, along with a number of others that I just mentioned, and many more than that too, shows that ancient primordial memories are accessible in modern times, possibly providing a window into Gebser's ancient consciousness structures, and if so, to integral consciousness.
If Katherine, 5 minutes. Thank you.
Well, that concludes my talk.